Live with CDP, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Now here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP podcast, season 4, episode 11. I'm just glad I made it. I just got back from the car dealership. I had to get some work done on my car today. So I'm looking forward to my show today with Don Landry. This is his third time coming on. He's a freelance broadcaster and columnist with the CFL.CA, and also does some work with Sportsnet with curling as well. So just bear with me, guys, and I'll bring on Don Landry, and we're going to talk some CFL and maybe last night's Argonauts game as well, which was kind of up and down that game. It seemed like both teams wanted to lose that game. But 1 second, I'm going to bring on Don Landry. Hey, Don, how you doing?
I'm good, Chris. Can you hear me? I got everything set up right?
Yep, loud and clear, perfectly.
Excellent.
And to honor you, I got the Argonauts in the background.
Oh, yeah. You've got, we should talk logos here, I think, because I had this conversation. I'm a big geek when it comes to uniforms and logos. Maybe we all are as sports fans. I don't know, Chris, but whenever somebody has a new logo or a new uniform, I got to weigh in and I have my opinions. I guess we all do. But for me, I mean, that Argonaut logo from 76 to 88 was the one that, when I was a kid and my dad was watching football, that's the one they had. And, I think, you have a soft spot for the logoing of any team when you were a kid. That's why I like the old Saskatchewan Roughriders one as well. I love that. And Calgary, when they were red and white, or maybe a little bit of silver, but that Argos logo, the 1956 to 1975 logo, in my opinion, is the finest logo they've ever had as a franchise. Agree or disagree?
I can't disagree. I was born in 72, so I kind of grew up with the 76 to 1988 one, but I can't disagree with you. And one of my friends who's with the Red Wings, Art Regner in Detroit, he's an Argonauts fan, and he loves that one from 56 to 75.
It's pretty special, I think. It really is.
I was going to say, I think the Argonauts have done a nice job with their uniforms again.
I like stripes on the arms. Not going to lie. I think that the uniforms the Argos have right now are lacking. I've thought that since day one. But, I've got some friends who tell me they think I'm way wrong about that. But those ones they had, the throwback ones kind of, or they felt like the old ones from the early 70s, the ones they had from, I think, 2012 until they changed. They won a couple of Grey Cups with the good arm stripes on them. I love those ones. I thought those looked really good.
I'm still biased. I still like the ones from the late 70s and early 80s. The ones at Stadium.
Like Condredge Holloway's wearing. See this?
Yes.
Condredge Holloway, my favorite CFL player of all time. And there he is wearing that classic uniform you're talking about. This is something I got at an auction. It's actually a signed print from Condredge, and it celebrates his induction to the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. It's pretty neat. It's one of my most prized possessions.
Because my late father got me into the Argonauts in the late 70s, and they weren't very good. And when they won a football game back then, it was like a big deal that they actually won a game, because they had to think back then called the Argo bounce.
Yes, they did. You know what? And it was good. Then it was bad. I remember those times too, because, when I became a CFL fan, I don't know if I can boil it down to one moment, but I maybe can. And it's Clements to Gabriel in the 1976 Grey Cup. Just the excitement of that play. I didn't really have a team, but my dad watched football all the time, and I would watch the Grey Cup. And I was, as a kid, I was more of a hockey fan, but I remember clearly watching that unfold and watching that play and thinking, my goodness, the excitement of this. And then I started to, Clements was there with Condredge Holloway in Ottawa. So I think I followed the Rough Riders for a little while. And then when Holloway came to Toronto, and I grew up just north of Toronto, It was, just natural for me to see, to attach to him, I think. And I did, not just for those reasons. Condredge Holloway was, just a phenomenal player, so gifted, good arm, great legs, an escape artist. And Chris, you'll probably agree with me on this one. He was tough. We talk about Michael Riley, and maybe the toughest quarterback I've ever seen play in the Canadian Football League might be Michael Riley, but not far behind is Condredge Holloway. He used to get just belted around and play through a bunch of pain whenever he could.
If I go to the game this Sunday against Ottawa, I'm hoping to go with the media freelance guy. Thanks to Chris Belanavosh. I think it's
Belanavosh. Yeah, with the Argos.
Yeah, really good guy. He gave me an opportunity in June, and he told me if you want to come down to BMO Field to email him, and he'll set me up as a media pass. Same as Mike Hogan. They're great. Sean Bowen. I'm going to ask him about, are they going to bring back the 83 team to celebrate them? Because I think that would be great, because that was the first championship in a long time again.
They did that and they could do it again. Maybe they'll do it next year, right? That'll be oh my goodness, that'll be the 40th. 40th. They did it for the 30th, and I was lucky enough to be in the broadcast or in the PA announcer's booth for that game. That was in 2013.
Wow.
And they brought them back, but I didn't announce them as they came out on the field, because as a kid, when I would go to Exhibition Stadium to see the Argos play, Fred Locking was the public address announcer, and I loved him. He just had a great voice, and he was no nonsense. He wasn't whipping the crowd into a frenzy or anything like that. He was just telling you what happened. 1st and goal from the 7. So I got in touch with him and brought him back, and he was in the booth actually at halftime, and he introduced the 83 Argos again, because he called their games as a public address announcer back in the day. That was a lot of fun just to watch him work again and to hear his voice as they came out at halftime.
I always wondered who was their PA announcer in the late 70s and early 80s, so that obviously was him. I always thought maybe it was Murray Alden. I thought maybe he did the Argos games too.
Some similarities, Murray's voice. Yeah, some similarities. I think Murray's voice was a little more, a little bit higher, just a touch, and maybe just a little bit more sing-songy. Fred Locking was just like this, straight ahead. Holloway's pass complete to number 10, Terry Greer. First down Argos at the BC 37. He was that kind of thing. And then when I got into the booth to do PA, I felt I tried to do it a lot like Fred Locking did. Times had changed a little bit, and they wanted me to do more Argos and things like that when I was doing it. But I tried to pay tribute to Fred Locking as much as I could, because I dearly loved how his voice sounded coming down the rafters, from the rafters at Exhibition Stadium. He was terrific.
And I was going to say, I'm just so glad they're back at on the exhibition grounds. I was going to say, Joe Bowen, I think for 1 or 2 years, did their PA announcing at the Skydome too.
Yeah, I think he did. I'm trying to remember who else may have done it as well. I think Mike Eben did it for a little while, the former Argo. And who else? And John Gallagher did it for a year or two. Yeah. Wow.
And I've had Adam Golse on as well. Adam, really good guy. I actually have had about 10 PA announcers come on my podcast, so I'm kind of biased towards the PA announcers, because they're all good guys, and I've been lucky to get them from all 4 sports to come on and how they talk about their style and how they got into it and stuff like that.
Did you ever talk to Paul Morris?
No, I have not. That would be somebody I would love to have as a guest, to have the voice of Maple Leaf Gardens for how many years? 40, 50 years?
Yeah, I grew up with that too, right? A Toronto goal scored by number 27, Daryl Sittler. You could just, we grew up with that. So, of course, it was going to really get ingrained into our every fiber, right? But he was phenomenal. And when he left in 1999, when they went to Air Canada Centre, they decided to change PA announcers, and I really had mixed emotions, because Paul Morris had done it for so long and I loved him, but Andy Frost, who's a terrific guy, and he did it for another 20 years, and then I felt bad when they decided to go in another direction from Andy as well, but so it was bittersweet at the time.
And I had Mike Ross on, and he gave me an hour and 20 minutes of his time. Great guy. And I said, even though I'm not a Leaf fan, I said, it's hard to hate the Leafs when you meet guys from franchises like Mike, and he's a really good guy, and he loves the team as well.
I haven't met him, but he does a tremendously good job. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, lots of good people. I've always thought, to be quite honest with you, and when I left the Argos job, I didn't, nobody in management asked me, but I had at least one woman approach me and say, "Do you think I should go for this job?" And I said, "Not only do I think you should go for it, I think they should hire you, or a woman, just, to change it up." I think it's far past time that a professional sports team in one of the big leagues has had a woman as a PA announcer. Forgive me if someone is doing it in a San Diego or in in Oakland or something. I don't know about it. We haven't seen it up here, though.
I was going to say, you're right. I don't think there has been a female public address announcer in any of the pro sports leagues in Canada. I know there has been in San Francisco with the Giants. I think the Red Sox at one point had a female step in for a little bit, and maybe a couple other cities. But that's an excellent point, Don, on that as well.
Lots of great candidates out there. Lots of women who love football, who'd love to be in the PA booth for a CFL team. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Get on
Definitely.
it, CFL franchises.
Definitely. Hey, I was going to say, this 2022 CFL season, man, every game, I can't speak for the other teams, but I know with the Argonauts, every game goes down to the last play.
This has been a really good season. And to be quite blunt, last season was not. I did not enjoy last season very much. There was the odd game, and the Grey Cup was very good. At least the second half was, and of course, overtime. But so far this season, not every game has been tremendous. But most of them have. And last week we had, you could argue all four were phenomenal, three of them at least. And then this weekend, you had some odd situations in that Saskatchewan-Toronto game, obviously being born of an odd situation with all of the COVID positives that the Rough Riders had, and then suspensions and injuries, not the same team that they fancied themselves, and not the same team that they will be when they're healthy again. But I've always been of the mind, Chris, that high level play is great, but if you don't get some mistakes, and let's face it, you get them in every league, every sport. If you don't get some mistakes, it's not quite as interesting. But the Argos really pushed that envelope on Sunday night, didn't they? I mean, holy doodle, did they make a lot of mistakes. The coaching staff, the players. But in the end, they had enough to get it done. And they did get some very good play, too. I don't want to be unfair about it. Andrew Harris was unbelievable in this game. And McLeod Bethel Thompson was pretty good. And Curly Gittins Jr., they had their fair share of good performers as well.
Yeah. Brandon Banks wasn't much of a factor until the end of the game, where he had that nice punt return. And I'm thinking maybe they need to use him on special teams as well, because he's too valuable not to have him get the ball at all.
Well, and they've been stuck in the mud, haven't they, Chris, when it comes to the return game this season and for the past few seasons, probably. So, and they might get a little crowded at receiver when Eric Rogers comes back and Juwan Brescison. When you start to get all these guys back, where are you going to put them all? A guy like Brandon Banks, who has not performed as well as a receiver, in my opinion, this season as he has in seasons past, maybe he goes back to being a return guy and does that all the time. And maybe he busts off a few big plays for the Argos that way, and then maybe they can spot him in as a receiver. It'll be interesting to see what they do when they do get those two receivers that I've been talking about back, and if everybody is healthy, because something's going to have to give.
Definitely. And then last night, how many times did the team win a football game with 5 turnovers? 5 turnovers plus that 61-yard field goal attempt as well. I just, like I said, they made a lot of mistakes back in the past. That's a game the Argonauts would have lost. So it was nice to see them get the job done. And the defense, I thought, played well for the most part. And they're making big, what's it called? Ball hawking defense. And they've been doing that this year.
Yeah, they certainly have. I think the Argo defense is showing signs, certainly last week and again last night, that they're really starting to come together. And, is it just a coincidence that Chris Edwards, the strong side linebacker, is in the lineup after serving his 3-game suspension? It might be partly coincidental, but I think there's more to it than that, because I think that guy is one of those proverbial straws that stirs the drink and really gets things going. But they've had 2 very good games on defense, the Toronto Argonauts. And if they only get better, who knows what they'll be when they get to the end of the season. But when you talk about the turnovers, and I wrote in my takeaways for CFL.CA about, something like that. I mean, when you take, these statistics of turnovers, of time of possession, and things like that, they mean nothing if you end up winning the football game. Ask the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who got absolutely scorched when it came to time of possession in the first half against Edmonton, and still came out of that with a sizable lead. And it wasn't until the fourth quarter where they were able to put together a long drive, which actually was longer than all of the time of possession they had in the first half. Point being, as Scott Milanovich said years ago, he was asked about these kinds of statistics. Which one is the most telling, do you think, Scott, when it comes to winning and losing? And he didn't hesitate. He just looked at the guy and said, I've always thought score was a big one. So it's just, get more points than the other team. And that's all that matters. You get the win.
But they don't make things easy, and with the Argonauts, every game, like I said, has been crazy, and there's nothing like even Boris Beatty's 29-yard field goal. I was like, oh my God, is he gonna make it? And he did, and it's like you just never know in the CFL, man. It's been crazy this year.
Yeah, and it's been all over the place, and there's been like heartbreak too for a team like the Ottawa Red Blacks. And I think about them, the excitement that surrounded that team in the offseason, and rightfully so, when they made all of these big free agent signings, and Jeremiah Mazzoli, the quarterback, and then he gets injured and he's out. But before that, they were a team that was, they seemed to be really close in a lot of areas. They played Winnipeg tough the first 2 weeks of the season, but just could not get a win, and could not again last week against Montreal, even though their young quarterback, Caleb Evans, looked fabulous. Best game he's played as a Red Black in the 2 seasons he's been there. And then what happens, Chris? Darvin Adams drops an easy touchdown pass. You can't account for that. He makes that almost every single time that ball is thrown to him. This particular instance, he didn't, and the Red Blacks get their hearts broken again.
And I was going to say the East record, other than the Argonauts, is 6-15, and I think their record against the West, I believe, is 3-12 or 3-13. So obviously, the Western Conference is obviously the stronger division again.
Oh yeah, by far. And the East really needs to get its act together. Ottawa, I thought, would be a lot better. I don't know about you, Chris, but I did. I thought and then after those 2 games against Winnipeg, I thought this won't take long, because they're right with them. Hamilton is perplexing to me, although they lost against a very good British Columbia team on the weekend, but they've looked better. They still look kind of dodgy to me in their win over Ottawa. And before that, I don't know, they were just a head scratcher. If they could just stop making mistakes, they'd probably be the team I expected them to be right from the beginning. And, when I was pushed to make predictions, I picked Hamilton to finish first. And I picked Ottawa to finish second, and told people at the time, if I had any guts, I'd pick the Red Blacks. So that's not going to work out that way. Hamilton still has time to rally.
Yes.
And oh boy, it's now, right? They play 2 games against Montreal and 4 against Toronto in the next 6 weeks.
Huge. Now, they did bring in Kahari Jones. What's your take on him coming to Hamilton?
I was surprised. I was really surprised that Montreal let him go in some ways. I mean, the rumors were around ever since Danny Machocha took over as the general manager that he's going to want to bring in his guy, or maybe he wants to coach a little bit himself, and maybe he wasn't so enamored of Kahari. I really like Kahari Jones's style, what I see from him, as a fan, watching him on the sidelines, listening to him talk. So I was a little surprised by that. And hope that he gets another coaching job, unless he wants to stay in the front office. It was an interesting pickup by the Ticats, who I think obviously felt the way I do about Kahari Jones. So this guy's quality. Can we get him in-house somewhere doing something? And we'll see where it leads. It's a good pickup. They've got a lot of really big brains in that Hamilton Ticat brain trust, and they've added one in Kahari, who again I think quite highly of.
He'll be a head coach again in the CFL.
I hope so.
And I was going to say, I think one guy that's on the hot spot might be Tommy Condell. And he's a good guy. I've had him on my podcast, and hopefully that doesn't happen. I guess there's been speculation, but hopefully they can turn around, because I don't think they're a 1-5 team. I think Hamilton should be, right now, Hamilton should really be 3-2, really.
Yeah, they're a better team than they have shown. Dane Evans has been a better quarterback than he has shown, the last 2 games notwithstanding, because he did show much better. For the most part, he had some adventures in that Ottawa game too, and it looked like but ultimately he was able to come back and lead them to the winning touchdown drive. So good on him. But back to Tommy Condell, he's been a very good offensive coordinator for many years now. And so if I'm the Ticats, if I'm a Ticat fan, I don't think I want to see that guy go. Not at the present time. If he's smart and if he's good, and I think he's both of those things, then maybe just perhaps after years of seeing Tommy Condell offenses, CFL defensive coordinators are starting to tweak, starting to guess right, starting to maybe see some tendencies. So like a good football team, a good football coach, he then can make some adjustments in his own thinking and the way he calls a game. And can Tommy Condell do that and become, more of a surprising offensive coordinator down the road? Sure, I'd give him a chance to do that. I'd ask him to do that, and I think he'd probably be able to pull it off.
Well, and I also think their running game hasn't been that great this year. They become a one-dimensional offense, so that puts more pressure on the quarterback in Evans, and they don't have Speedy Banks there, and Luke Tasker, who retired a couple years ago, that they never replaced him either.
Still got some really good playmakers there, though, like Braylon Addison, who Dane Evans says, I just look for him. Even if he is broken off his route and he's freelancing, I don't care. I want to find that guy. And every quarterback has that guy, I guess. But there's really good talent on that Hamilton team on the offensive side and on the defensive side. I think it's a very good team, particularly in the secondary. So, again, I guess we're kind of circling around and around here on the Ticats. We agree. They just should be better than they are, and they're going to be, I think.
Okay, I was going to ask you this question. Which teams have surprised you so far this year? And obviously, we've already talked about one of the teams that have been a disappointment in the Hamilton Ticats. I just wanted to see what you thought about a couple teams that have surprised and another team that might have disappointed you besides Hamilton, maybe Ottawa, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's Ottawa. Ottawa, I'm disappointed with and surprised by. That they're not better, that they don't have more wins. I still think they're playing pretty good football, and maybe the wins are going to come for them. I don't know. But I think the surprise is, in a lot of ways, the BC Lions, just because, even if you thought after watching Nathan Rourke play a little bit last year, even if you thought, hey, he could be a pretty good quarterback one day, probably, to make him the starter, have confidence in him, be stubborn about it, not go and get a free agent with lots of yardage under his belt. That was quite a decision by the Lions, but we're finding out exactly why they felt so confident. He looks mostly terrific. And despite them having really good offensive talent, I still wondered, how is this going to work out with the young quarterback? And I wasn't quite sure about their defense, but their defense has been really, really, really good. And not just this past week, all season long. And Ryan Phillips has done a tremendous job as a defensive coordinator. He's the guy maybe that goes to the top of the list. Every year, Chris, we get these lists of who are the assistants who maybe are head coaches in the not too distant future. Maybe Ryan Phillips has just put his name near the top of the list, if not right at the top of the list.
Yeah, because in the West, you got Winnipeg 7-0. Then you got BC and Calgary. And then Saskatchewan's 4-3. They're not bad. And then you got Edmonton that's still in a rebuild at 2-5. But to me, Winnipeg is still the team to beat in the CFL, especially in the West.
They just find ways to win every week. Yep. And again, if they don't lead, the stats that they're supposed to in the game, well, they've done the right thing at the right time. Including a big explosion play. They could get nothing done on offense against Edmonton, and then they get the explosion play for the big touchdown. But I was going to ask you if you agree with my picks there, or are you surprised by somebody else that I didn't bring up?
I would say Hamilton and Ottawa, and I think that's pretty well because we all expected Winnipeg to be good. BC, I thought was going to be a decent team this year. Calgary is always consistent. Saskatchewan, you know what? I guess, yeah, you're right. I agree with you on that. Hamilton and Ottawa, and for surprises, I guess BC a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I
Yeah.
think some people will claim that they're surprised by Calgary, that they just didn't think they were going to be strong this year. But I don't know why they would have felt that way through the offseason. I thought they've got lots of really great veterans, and John Huffnagel, all he ever does is find the next household name, right?
Yeah.
Who's the guy that I've never heard of that, is starting for Calgary this year? And then by August or September, he's been a player of the week and everybody knows who he is, right? That's what Huffnagel does.
Oh, I was going to ask you. I really thought Winnipeg losing Andrew Harris would hurt them, but obviously not. But I was going to say, I have to speak about Andrew Harris. 10,000 yards rushing, first Canadian ever to do that in the league.
Yeah, and did it in style, right? That was as a bulldozer performance as we've ever seen from Andrew Harris. And that's saying something. He's at 35, he's still the guy, at least for now, who it takes a village to tackle him. You better get more than one guy on him, and you better make it 3 and maybe more. And he's still going to churn his legs and get a few more yards, and his helmet's going to pop off and that kind of thing. The thing that, and I'm not sure why it took me so long to notice this about Andrew Harris, but I didn't notice it about him earlier in his career, and maybe even up into as recently as last year. But he just makes awesome on the fly decisions, doesn't he, Chris? When it comes to, he's got the ball, where's the hole? It's not there. I spy it, and boom, he just makes good decisions on that so often. Like, I just jumped to the conclusion that in those occasions where he's handed the ball and he goes into the line and he stopped right away, he had no other options, because if he did, he'd have found it. And when he makes that choice and hits the hole, even if somebody, gets both their arms around him, if he hits the hole, he's got 5, 6, 7 yards. There's nothing you can do about it unless you stop him in his tracks right away.
And the years the Argos won the Grey Cup, they had a good running game. And like I said, my only concern with him is not necessarily his age, but they're going to have to do some kind of load management like the Raptors did with Sky Leonard, in my opinion, because it's a long season and guys are going to get beat up. And to me, Harris is one of the key components of that offense.
They absolutely have to do that. You landed on a really important point, I think, Chris, and that was great to see last night if you're an Andrew Harris fan, if you're an Argo fan, but that can't happen game in and game out, and that's not an insult to Andrew Harris.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough to do when you're 25, and he's not. It's commendable that he's in such great shape and he's still able to do it. But they talked about it at the beginning of the season. We'll have to, we'll spell him a bit, and they've got Daniel Adeboboye, who they drafted. Maybe they need to hand him the ball a little bit more than they did last night, but that was clearly not going to be the game plan. That Harris was feeling good and he was making plays. But yeah, you want to ask him to go for 30 touches every game, most of them rushing. I don't know. And again, nothing against Andrew Harris, not an insult, but that's just not something I don't think that they should ask him to do on a regular basis. Do you?
No, because I want to have him fresh, ready for the playoffs. So to me, if I was the coach of the Argonauts, I would limit it to him to about 20, 22 touches a game running the ball.
And you want Adeboboye, by the way, to be fully up to speed and feeling confident and ready in case there's an injury to Andrew Harris, and you have to go in that direction.
Definitely.
So you've got to make sure, there are 2 parts to that equation, right? Making sure Andrew Harris is as fresh as he possibly can be, as long as he possibly can be, and that his understudy is ready to go and knows the lines when the spotlight hits.
Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot with this next question. Thoughts on Saskatchewan defensive tackle Garrett Marino's 4-game suspension on Jeremiah Mazzoli? Did you agree with the 4 games, or do you felt that it should be less or even more than 4?
I think 4 is at least the amount. I might have suspended him for even longer than that, given his history and given what happened in that game. And the Mazzoli hit wasn't the first hit that he did, in grabbing somebody that way. And I realized that, tempers flare and there's maybe payback involved there. But I personally, it's just, I don't want to see that kind of garbage. And, so 4 games had me feeling somewhat satisfied as a football fan, but I thought, they could have given him even more if they'd wanted. And I wouldn't have thought it was untoward.
I would have given him at least 6. If you got to do suspensions based on prior history, and if he's had a record of this, then to me he should have got more than 4 games, in my opinion. But
fair enough, yeah,
definitely. Okay, the next question I wanted to ask you. We've already talked about the Argonauts, but this question I wanted to ask you specifically: do you still feel McLeod Bethel Thompson is a long-term solution as your franchise quarterback, and do you feel Chad Kelly will eventually get his opportunity at some point this season?
Yeah, boy, that's a good one. I really like McLeod Bethel Thompson in a lot of ways. I just, I could listen to that dude talk in an interview for hours. He's a special human being when it comes to his intelligence, his philosophy, his thoughtfulness, just the way he speaks. As a quarterback, I think he's really good. But he's a little inconsistent. I'd still like to see more consistency when it comes to the deep balls from McLeod Bethel Thompson. But and then I think in the Saskatchewan game, the interception he threw was not a great decision. But I can't really hold that against him too much because every quarterback I've seen play will make these decisions once in a while.
Yes.
So overall, I don't know about long term because how old is he now, Chris? Is he 34?
I think he's in his 30s. Yeah, I think he's 32 or 33, I believe.
He could play till he's 40.
Yeah, that's true.
Do that now. So, maybe I shouldn't think of the age thing the way I have been when it comes to McLeod Bethel Thompson. And the Argos certainly love him. And if he has success this season, I wouldn't see Chad Kelly getting in there to do too much in the foreseeable future. Not the way Macbeth has been playing. I'm not sure what to think of Chad Kelly, to tell you the truth. When in the little bit that we've seen him play, all I can say is this. I guess what I'd say is I haven't seen enough. I don't know. He seems to have great arm. He's got athletic ability.
Absolutely.
When I've seen him play so far this season, he's a long way from seasoned. And I guess maybe the only way you can do that is to get some reps. But the kid's certainly got some talent. That's for sure.
Because my concern is if Bethel Thompson gets hurt and he's going to be out long term, this is when you're going to find out what Chad Kelly's about. So I don't think we've seen enough of him. Like, they only played 2 preseason games and he played in both of them. I think he has good mobility. He has a good arm. And I talked to Jim Barker and he's high on him. He just said he needs to learn the speed of the game because it's much different than the NFL and U.S. college football where he came from.
Right. So I think, he's had a goodly amount of time through training camp and through the first third of the season here to get somewhat adjusted to that. He saw preseason action, but we both know that preseason action isn't quite the same as regular season action. So now he needs a taste of that. But yeah, you bring up a pretty good point about, him having to be ready if McLeod Bethel Thompson gets nicked up for any amount of time. It's the same conversation we were having about Andrew Harris, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
because you can never foresee injuries to key players or on your depth chart during a season.
What the Argos need is to be comfortable in a game to get Chad Kelly in there. Like they haven't had the ability to do that. They certainly didn't have the ability to do that last night in Regina. And am I wrong? And I'm trying to remember, is his only regular season action when they were getting blown out in BC?
Yes, correct.
So
correct. Yeah.
Not much there either.
No.
So they need to kind of get, into a comfortable situation, and heading into the fourth quarter, a good lead, and then go, hey, maybe we can get this guy in with 10 minutes left to go in the football game.
I've noticed with the Argos this year, the offense doesn't really start getting going until the second quarter or in the third quarter. It would be nice to see them get out to a 7-0 lead, 14-0 lead in the first quarter of a game.
Seems to be right, but it might be nice for you, Chris, but realistically, doesn't look like that's the kind of team they're going to be so far this season. You might have to sit through a lot of 3-point first quarters or 0-point first quarters. unless some tumblers click somewhere along the way. And I don't doubt that they can ever in any situation. Sometimes things change like that. And they might for the Argos. They might become a jackrabbit team on offense, but so far they have not. They've had some decent drives in first quarters, but not been able to finish them off.
My concern about the game Sunday is Ottawa is due for a win, and I'm concerned that the Argo players might these guys are winless. This is an easy game, and these games worry me the most.
It's the trap. It's the classic trap game, right, Chris?
Yeah, exactly.
But so many ways to think about these things philosophically. Like if they were going to be prone to that, shouldn't last night's game in Saskatchewan have cured them of that, Chris? Because
it should.
A lot of people thought, oh, this will be a walkover. I mean, how many starters did Saskatchewan have out? And the Argos got a scare. And, let's face it, if they were playing any other team in the CFL last night with, that had most of its starters in, they would have lost. They wouldn't have had much of a chance to win that game. So maybe that will cure them. It's at least a talking point for the coaches. They can say, don't take these guys lightly. They're a pretty good football team. They've lost a lot of games by less than a touchdown or just one possession. And don't forget what happened in Regina with a bunch of guys who came off the practice roster and a third-string quarterback. We had a problem.
Definitely. And I'm gonna ask you another. Are you okay for a few more minutes?
Oh yeah. I got some time.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about this. We've talked about this in the past too, but overall, do you think Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment is still doing enough to get the fans out to BMO Field? And do you think the team is now being marketing enough with fan promotions and marketing the players around the city and province?
I wish I could answer that for you, but I don't know. I mean, I could talk about the province, but I haven't lived in Toronto for a while, so I don't really know what's going on there. Look at it. I mean, MLSE is footing the bills for a team that does not make money.
That's true.
So you have to always remember that. And in business, I know they say you got to spend money to make money, but often these corporations don't spend money unless they are making money. And how do we make more money? And that's why it goes into the Maple Leafs and it goes into the Raptors. And, so it's hard for me to say, exactly if MLSE, not being inside there and seeing what levers are being pulled. And I know fans would like to see, bus shelter ads and ads on TV and things like that. And from that standpoint, I'd say, they're not spending enough money to promote the team. But I understand why, the coffers are pretty tight when it comes to those expenses. It's because, you got to do your own shopping, if you want to have a feast that night. And the Argos have not been doing their own shopping for quite some time now, financially speaking.
I was going to say, and BMO Field's a great spot for football, and it's easy to get to by the GO train and even getting off the QE or the Gardner Expressway. And I was going to ask you, long term, can this franchise survive with averaging 10 to 12,000 fans a game?
That's a question for the suits at MLSE, but I would suggest that they're not going to love that idea forever. The thing about the Argos is that there's always been another owner waiting. Is there again this time if that happens? It's
That's
hard
a good
to
question
say,
too.
but
Good question.
It's a heartbreaking one for me. It's and perplexing. Well, we're birds of a feather, Chris. I mean, we love the Canadian Football League. I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to go to an Argo game or a Ticats game or whatever city they're in. I have no idea why you wouldn't want to do that. It's just a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed it. It's much better than its detractors say. That's the thing that will always drive me nuts. Is people who are NFL only fans and they go, you watch the CFL with that kind of an attitude. They are willfully blind, or they just don't understand that league that they look down on isn't nearly as bad as they think it is. It's much better. Now, it might not be quite as good as CFL fans build it up to be, but still damn good. So again, I don't get it. I mean, I used to get really mad about it. And now I I don't know. Maybe it's been so many years of hearing that kind of thing from detractors where I just shrug and just go, okay, whatever. You don't like it, you're missing out. I'll go hang with my friends who do get it and who do love it, and I'll have a great time with them.
I will give Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment credit. They've kept the ticket prices reasonable. Now they have $3 hot dog at games. I think $5 or $6 or $7 beer, reasonable prices still. So, and I got to give them credit. They also did 2 games during the CNE as well. So if you buy a ticket to a game, you get free admission to the CNE. So, and they did go back to the almost same logo as the one from 76 to 88. But that one's still my favorite.
Yeah, but it's good. And I see it there at the bottom. And you know what? It's just not as colorful as that one up there, 1976 to 1988. And they did this when they did the throwback helmets. They took that logo, 76 to 88, and they tightened it up graphically, right? They made it smoother and just neater. And it looked fantastic. I thought, why didn't they just go with that? But that looks good too. I mean, they have had really good logos over the years. I mean, a lot of people in Toronto, I remember when they just went to the A, there it is with the shield.
Yeah, that didn't do anything for me.
I ended up thinking it was phenomenal.
Oh, okay.
At first, I was like, okay. It's still not as good as the football with the sail on it, but I think it's good that they've kept it around a little bit. There's my. See, remember I was telling you about stripes on the jerseys, Chris?
Yep.
What if you just put the shield there instead? You got the boat on the helmet, the shield on the shoulders.
Yeah, they could do that too. And just got a couple more questions I want to ask you. This one I got to put you on the spot again. Will the Winnipeg Blue Bombers become the first CFL team since the Edmonton Elks, the Eskimos, to win 3 Grey Cups in a row since Edmonton won 5 in a row from 78 to 82?
Will they do it? You're asking me who's going to win the Grey Cup in July.
Yes.
Chris, no offense. I say this to everybody all the time. I am not telling you who's winning the Grey Cup at the end of November in July.
Okay.
Too much can happen.
That's true.
Yeah. If the game was being played in the next, like we're going into the playoffs right now. I'd say
that's true.
I'd say I like Winnipeg right now, but holy moly, we got a long way to go.
So I just think
it's a bit of a sucker's game to say that. But
I just think it's a great story because, like I said, it's been a long time since the CFL had a dynasty win 3, 4, 5 in a row. I know the Argos won back-to-back in 96, 97, and Montreal did back-to-back in 09, 10. But this is a storyline I'm kind of curious about because it's very hard in any sports league to win 3 in a row.
I will pose this question to you, and I almost put it in my column today, but I didn't. I'm not sure why I didn't make it in there, but when is it too early, in your opinion, Chris, to start talking about the possibility of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers having a perfect season?
Yes, absolutely. I thought about asking you that, and then I thought, you know what? It's only July. And you know what? Look what happened to New England in 2007. They went 16-0, and then they went 18-0, and then they lost the Super Bowl. Nobody cared about the 18
Giants,
straight wins. Yeah. That one Super Bowl loss, it won't mean nothing unless you win the Grey Cup championship.
It's almost better, like if you get to the point where you've won 12, 13 football games in a row, you just lose one on purpose before the regular season ends, right? But, fair enough. If it's too early to suggest that or to predict who's going to win the Grey Cup, it's maybe too early to suggest that Winnipeg could go perfect. Maybe, I don't know. That talk's going to happen. If they keep going, when does it start? When they get to 10-0, 11, 12?
I'd say 10. But I was talking to a coach from the National Basketball League of Canada, the London Lightning, and they were pretty well undefeated this year. But he told me, he goes, sometimes coaches hate winning streaks because guys get into bad and lazy habits, and then they don't see their mistakes until it's too late and they lose a game. So he sometimes says a loss is a great coaching tool for these guys.
It just gets into your head too. I think you get past the point of it bringing you such confidence, right? And you start going, we're bound to lose one, and now we're in the playoffs. Now I'm a little freaked out. Maybe that's just me. Maybe a pro athlete would not think that way about it. I don't know, but It's interesting to think about Winnipeg winning 3 in a row. And then I start going, to be honest with you, Chris, I was thinking about the 3 in a row, and then I was thinking about the 5 in a row. Because when the Argos won 2 in a row in 96 and 97, there was talk about, hey, can they be a team that pushes to 5 in a row? Can they be that team? Then they lost Doug Flutie, and he went to the Buffalo Bills. But, can the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, do they have a good enough core and a young enough core that they could actually reel off 5 in a row? I'm going to suggest the answer is they could, that they do have that core, but keeping those guys together, it's so hard to do. It was hard enough to do back when Edmonton did it. Now it's almost impossible.
Definitely. One of my viewers, she's an Argos fan, Lori, says, good idea, shield on the shoulders, boat on the helmet. I like it. So
I think I talked to Lori about that.
Yeah, she's a nice woman too. Yes. And that's the one thing about the Argo fan base. Maybe it's not as big as it should be, but the fan base they got there is loyal as hell, as loyal as any fan base in the CFL. People might laugh at me for saying that, but the fans I do have there are just as loyal as anybody else in the league.
There is not actually a better fan base in all professional sports than the Toronto Argonauts fan base, just because of the amount of garbage they have to take in their own city, for crying out loud. So, when I say that and somebody, how can you say that? I'm just saying that there isn't anybody better. Like, there are lots of great fans in all these different cities across North America and indeed across the planet. And they're all superbly loyal. And many of them get to do that in greater numbers. Argo fans have been beleaguered even in their own city for decades. And it's just having to take that kind of gut punch and garbage from people who are supposed to be rooting for the team that you're also rooting for because they root for the Blue Jays and the Leafs and the Raptors. It's tough, but and again, other people have said this, and I experienced it as the PA announcer at BMO, and then sitting in the stands as well after I left the booth. Like, it's a raucous crowd. A smaller crowd, but the energy, the emotion, the passion, the dedication that Argo fans have shown for just decades, and I mean personally, some of them for decades, is beyond compare to me.
And when I covered the game at the University of Guelph, Chris was great to me. Mike Hogan was great. Mike Pinball Clements, Jim Barker. I got to talk to everyone, and they're letting a guy who's a freelance media guy trying to break into the industry come in and interview players and coaches after the game. And they know how much I love the team and the sport, but it just means so much to me that this football franchise who I grew up with is giving me an opportunity to keep improving my skills and trying to get into the media side of broadcasting.
Well, and let me say this to you, Chris, because you say this is my third appearance, right?
Yes.
And I can tell you that, you've got great passion and a willingness to keep at it and do it, and you've improved. You have. It's obvious that you've improved at doing this. Keep at it, because you're just going to keep going up. But good for you. Congratulations on doing this, on sticking with it, on making it look good. Look at, the screen looks pretty good. You got a great logo and you ask great questions. You're prepared. And you love to do it. It shows. Yeah,
this isn't working, and I'm just trying to improve. And I'm with Rogers TV as a camera operator, and one of the guys there got me a microphone. So now when I'm at sporting events, I'm doing live interviews with a real microphone to make the audio sound better. And I'm just trying to improve every day, and hopefully somebody out there will give me an opportunity one day.
Give them a shot. I'm not hiring right now, to tell you the truth. I have enough trouble just keeping myself employed right now, Chris. Otherwise.
Yeah, so I know it's not an easy road, but this is something I really have a passion in, and then this is what I'm working towards.
What else is there but passion and love and do it?
And also, great guests make a podcast too, and I've been very lucky that people seem to like my work and want to come on here. And I like sharing my guest stories with my audience and some of my life experience as well.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad you're digging it and having fun.
Definitely. Now, before I wrap this up, I got to put you on the spot one more time. You got the Argonauts.
Why, Chris? Why do you have to keep putting me on the spot? What do you put everyone on the spot this much?
Yes,
All
I
right.
do. Argonauts Ottawa game Sunday at 5 o'clock at BMO Field. What's your prediction for this game?
Argos win it. They do like playing at BMO. That passionate crowd fires them up. They play well at BMO. Ottawa's going to be close, I think. They'll keep it tight. It's a good defense in Ottawa. And if they can get any semblance of a running game, I don't know if they can, though. That Argo defense just shut down Saskatchewan's run game. I mean, but I think it'll be a decent game. But I would make the prediction that the Argos will probably win that one.
I got the Argos winning 24-17.
There you go. That's pretty close. Another one possession loss for the Red Blacks.
Unfortunately, I can see that happening, and I think there's going to be another turnover that might decide this game as well. Definitely.
But we'll see how it shapes up.
And hopefully I will be able to go to the game as a media member, and I'll be posting some of my work at the game on my social media pages as well. So
I hope you do.
Definitely. Last question I wanted to ask you. It's not really a question, but can you just tell my audience where they can follow you again on social media, your website, and what is your next curling assignment coming up? Is it going to be in the fall or the winter time?
Yeah, that's hard to say. Maybe never. That's the plight of freelance. And once in a while the phone rings and they say, "Hey, can you do this?" I'm working on an article for Curling Canada's Extra End magazine. I know that I'm doing that. So I like to keep my hand in curling as much as possible because it's like the CFL, football, curling. They're like that this for me. I love them both dearly. And the people who are in those sports and the people who love those sports, just, that's what really gets my passion going is football and curling in equal measures. But what was the question? Oh, work it. Yeah, you can just follow me on Twitter if you like, CFL Landry, if you're a football fan. And I do have a website, but there's not much. I'm not going to lie to you, Chris. There's not much on my website except I put my CFL.CA articles on there with links saying if you want to read this, you can go to the CFL website. But get me at CFL Landry, or for curling stuff, at Don Landry Media. 2 Twitter accounts, Chris.
Wow. 2. Wow.
No Instagram.
I find 1 Twitter account's enough. There's so much social media. And since I talked to you last, I'm now on TikTok as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
What are you? You're on TikTok? What are you, 22?
50. I'm 50. But you know what? I'm up to almost 1,000 followers, and I posted a couple videos that got 45,000 views. So it's funny. Sometimes he posts stuff on their content that's good. Nobody watches it. And then sometimes you post something, you don't think much of it, and it goes viral.
I had this. It's funny you say this, Chris, because when I was doing the morning show at the Fan, first with Pat Marston, then with Gord Stellick, always there was the producer, Jeff Samet. And he was my partner when we always put together like a daily comedy bit or two. Then we would always have something. And every time Jeff and I put something together and we just thought, oh my God, this is the best thing we've ever done. This is hilarious. Nothing, no reaction. And then we would put things out there and go, it's good enough. And then that people would phone and say, that was fantastic. It got to the point where we just decided we have no idea what's funny or what isn't. So
you just never know. But it's just another tool to promote my podcast, my guests, and myself as well.
Good.
So I was going to say, Don, and I'm going to let you go, but I was going to say quickly, I know you're not really a Blue Jays fan, but is this Blue Jay team, you think they'll make the playoffs this year?
I don't know. I have not seen a single pitch of baseball this year.
Okay.
I mean, obviously I found out when they were beating Boston Friday night. I kind of went, what? It was 25-3 at the time when somebody told me, but I honestly just haven't watched a single pitch of baseball. I know what my friends tell me. Good team, lots of talent. So you know what have I got to lose? Yeah. What was the question? Can they win it all?
Can they get into the playoffs, the postseason?
Yes.
I agree with you. I agree. And I've got to talk to the Jays organization about this. Jerry Howarth should be on the Wall of Fame, and Dave Steves, number 37, should be retired. I just think the organization should do a little more about their history. And I'd like to see that at the Argonaut Stadium too. Have some statues of Terry Greer, Conrad Holloway,
Former
Doug
PA
Sturgeon.
announcers, maybe statues of former PA announcers,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And that's another thing I'm hoping to do at some point is maybe do some PA announcing work around golf just to get some experience at doing it. So
Keep
I'm
doing
going to
what you love.
thank you, Don. And Lori just says this has been very entertainment. Thank you both. Well, thank you, Lori, for watching. And Don, thank you for coming on my podcast again for a third time. You're only 2 behind the guys who have the record, Pat and Aaron.
Who has the record?
Pat Gray Gore from TSN and the Halifax Thunderbirds of the National Lacrosse League, and Andrew Sanders. He's the voice of the Windsor Express of the National Basketball League, and this guy has the voice of God. I just hope TSN or ESPN gives this gentleman, Aaron, a chance to do basketball games. This guy is passionate, and he has that voice and look for TV.
As long as I'm ahead of Hoagie, that's all I care about.
Actually, you are. You're up 3-2. You're up 3-2 over Hogan.
Hoagie.
Yes.
Sucker.
And he's an Eagles fan, so me and him have a lot in common. Eagles and Argos, and he's such a good guy, and he's done a lot for me. So, all right. Yeah. I will. If I run into Mike, I'll say hi to him. I'll say hi to you. I'll say hi to Mike Free on Sunday if I'm down at BMO Field. Fingers crossed.
All right.
Okay, Don, you have a great night, and we'll definitely keep in touch on social media.
Thanks a lot, Chris. You take care.
You too, Don. Thank you. Anyways, thank you, Don, for coming on, and Lori, thank you for coming on as well. Go Argonauts. And guys, just to let you know, I'm just going to finish this podcast up soon. My next podcast is going to be this Wednesday, July 27th at 2 p.m. Eastern. My guest is going to be Kate Wheeler. She's a former reporter and longtime news anchor with CTV News in Toronto, and now she's a media trainer as well. So I'm looking forward to speaking to Kate, and she's also done some radio work as well. So she's done it all in the media industry, and I'm looking forward to speaking to her. So I hope you guys can tune in to season 4, episode 12 on Wednesday, July 27th, 2:00 Eastern with Kate Wheeler as well. And also, guys, just to let you know, I do this with all my podcasts too. Live with CDP podcasts. The audio version is downloaded onto Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn. And you guys can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP on TikTok as well. Before I get going, guys, I'm just going to show some highlights of this Argonauts 31-21 win over the Saskatchewan Roughriders last night at Mosaic Stadium in Saskatchewan. And this was one of the most beautiful stadiums in North America.
Mosaic Stadium, Kate, for a football game. A day late, yes, and a few players short for the Roughriders, but they're ready for the rematch against the Argos. And this game is finally underway to cap off Week 7. Riders, Argos, Alford with it across the 30 and up around the 35. And a 26-yard try for Boris Beatty, put down by John Haggerty, and perfectly up and through.
Usually when you're throwing it high, when I talk to Matt Dunnigan, you're overstepping.
And Brett Lawther, who was 3 for 4 last week, hits that one.
Oh, the benefactors of the work that Kelly Hamilton has done in this province.
A big completion here for Gittins, and he'll take it all the way for the Argonaut touchdown. Curly Gittins and a quick strike of 70 yards from McLeod Bethel Thompson.
He's capable of 400 in a blink of an eye, and the accuracy on the throw was so good that Gittins took it in stride and took it to the house.
Boris Beatty on the kickoff, and Mario Alford concedes the single point, taking that in his end zone. And a career high, if he can get it. Seconds ticking down until halftime. No, wide right. He pushed that, and Alford easily takes it out to limit the damage as he runs around, and he takes off, and he's still going. Uh-oh, this could be trouble for the Argonauts. return, touchdown Saskatchewan.
Everybody goes in and regroups. And then he starts to get into second, third gear. And then this cut stays in bounds right down that sideline. And then long strides it all the way to the end zone.
This will be a 36-yard try by Boris Beatty, who missed from 61 late in the first half. No problem at all for the veteran from Laval at the 28. And this is to restore the 4-point lead, which Lawther does. So this time the offense, they drive the field on their own, not needing turnovers. It's too early.
That's how you do.
Oh, and now bad exchange, batted ahead by Charleston Hughes. What else can go right for the Riders on this day? Touchdown Saskatchewan. A big discussion now.
Saskatchewan number 39 committed an offside pass. They're going to go back to the 21-yard line. It's first down Saskatchewan.
So no touchdown for Charleston Hughes. They scrimmage deep, and they will settle for a field goal up and through for Brett Lawther. So they do add to their lead, just not by as much. Second and goal, Saskatchewan 5. The Argos need a touchdown. They look into the end zone to a wide open receiver, and they do get the touchdown. Cam Phillips hauls it in.
Well, McLeod Bethel Thompson takes a peek. Now, keep in mind that Amari Henderson and Mike Edom have had to leave for 3 plays. This was the second of those.
So John Haggerty will take the snap from Jake Reinhardt and put it down at the Saskatchewan 29 for Boris Beatty.
He's been in this situation before.
He has. A missed extra point that would have forced overtime against Winnipeg. This is to put them 3 points ahead. Beatty up. And Beatty is good. 43 seconds on the clock. And for the first time this half, the Argos have the lead again. Alford standing back at the Rider 10. And he will have it further back at the 5. Running around, trying to get free. Does for a moment, loses the ball. Enoch Penny-Lawyer takes it in for the Argo touchdown to put this one away. The rookie from McMaster had a gift waiting for him as Alford tried to make something happen again, and he lost the football. So they lost the turnover battle against Saskatchewan, but they're...
Anyways, guys, that clip was courtesy of the Toronto Argonauts YouTube channel and TSN as well. The Argonauts won that game 31-21. The Argonauts really outplayed them most of this game, but the Argonauts had 5 turnovers, which cost them, I think, 21 points. And they also had that missed field goal attempt at the end of the first half by Boris Beatty. 61 yards, which I thought was too long. He has a strong leg, but obviously Alford returned it for a 112-yard kick. But you know what? It wasn't a pretty win, but the Argos got the job done. Offensively, 495 yards total. I think they had over 300 passing, and Andrew Harris had 136 yards rushing. So the Argonauts are in first place in the CFL East right now, 3-2. Montreal's 2-4, Hamilton's 1-5, Ottawa's 0-6. So the Argos can give themselves a little more breathing room for the first place in the CFL East with a win against the Ottawa Red Blacks this Sunday night at 5 o'clock on TSN and on TSN 1050 on the radio with Mike Hogan calling the game there as well. Yours truly is fingers crossed, is hoping I will be at the game as a member of the media. And if so, I will be doing some interviewing the coaches and possibly some players as well, and as well as doing a blog and writing a bit of a story as well. So hopefully they get a good crowd. It's a Sunday night game, 5 o'clock. BMO Field's one of the nicest stadiums for football, and hopefully the Argos can maybe even get 20,000 people to come out on Sunday against Ottawa, 15 to 20,000. I know the Detroit Tigers are in Toronto this weekend, but the Tigers are in a rebuild, and the Blue Jays are actually playing good baseball right now. So anyways, guys, again, I want to say thank you to my guest, Don Landry, for coming on for a third time and talking Toronto Argonauts football and some Canadian Football League as well. And hopefully I'll have Don back on again and maybe in the future and talk maybe some more curling. He's a big curling guy, and I absolutely know nothing about curling, to be honest. But anyways, guys, I want to say thank you to everybody watching this on my YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe if you already haven't, and hit the like button for all my previous podcasts. Thank you to everybody watching this on Facebook Live and on my Twitter page at Chris D. Palme. And please consider following me there as well. I do a lot of tweeting and a lot of Twitter content. And I'm up to 922 followers, which is pretty good for this 50-year-old guy who's trying to get into the media business. But again, I hope you guys can tune into my next podcast show this week, Wednesday, July 27th at 2 o'clock. Kate Wheeler, former reporter and longtime news anchor with CTV News in Toronto, will come on and talk about her career in media, broadcasting, and also doing some radio work. And now she's currently a media trainer for people trying to get on air talent. So it should be a good show. And I've got a couple more podcasts coming up this week. On Thursday, Joe Whitbread, he's a public address announcer for the Sylvan Lake goals of the Canadian Western Baseball League coming on. And then Friday night at 7:30, I have O'Reilly Pitt. He was drafted originally by the Oshawa Generals. He's now playing in the Quebec Junior Minor Hockey League with the Acadia Titans. So I'm looking forward to speaking to O'Reilly. And I want to say a special thank you to my friend and contact Sandra Murray for putting me in touch with some of her clients. She works with OHL clients and stuff like that. So I want to say thank you to Sandra Murray for helping me get some guests from the OHL coming on in the next little while as well. So, all right, guys, I hope everybody has a great night. And again, thank you to Don Landry for coming on. And we'll see you guys this Wednesday at 2 o'clock for season 4, episode 12 of Live with CDP Sports Podcast. Have a great night, guys. And again, go Argos. They're going to be in Ottawa 24-17 on Sunday at BMO Field in Toronto. Okay, guys, we'll see you Wednesday at 2 o'clock with Kate Wheeler.
Live.